Hello everyone, welcome back to a new episode of How to Reach 2000. We're starting off with a rating of 1147, get 1b3. I believe this is the second time we see this in this series. We're playing d5 again, taking some space. Let's play c5. We're controlling a lot of space. Our idea is to play knight to c6 and then play e5 and then have the whole center. Their idea is to probably do something like this and try to go for e4. Yep, like I said, knight f3 is played. Now we play knight c6, controlling a bit of that square. We cannot play e5 because two pieces control that square, whereas only one of our pieces is controlling that square. We can consider playing f6 and then e5, but the drawback of that is it opens up this diagonal and there might be potential queen h5 stuff that we have to deal with. So let's just play this move because their recent move was e3. e3 opens up this diagonal, so the knight is pinned to the queen. They pin us so that we cannot play e5. Our idea was after bishop to g4, this knight cannot move because that would result in the queen being captured. That would be losing. And we were threatening to play e5. They play this move, preventing our knight from moving, because if our knight moves, then our king would be captured, so e5 is no longer possible. Let's play the move e6. We have moved the bishop outside of this pawn chain, so we don't mind playing e6, which solidifies the center, so the d5 pawn is very solid. They go for this exchange of the bishop versus knight. It's kind of early in the game to judge whether if it's beneficial for me or for him, but I personally like that. Having the two bishops seems like a good thing. Let's play knight f6 so that we can move this bishop without losing the g7 pawn. They defend their knight. I'm not too worried. Maybe their idea is to play h3, but if they play h3, I'm just going to drop back. I'm going to play this move, occupying this diagonal. If they play h3, I'm not worried, like I said. They can go for the g5 stuff. I'm not going to sack, I'm just going to go here. If they really want my bishop, they have to do this. And I don't think that's beneficial for them because they're creating too many weaknesses in the process. Now they go for this. I feel like that's a little too much. Yes, they're trying to put pressure on this. So if we play a move like this, maybe they can consider taking this pawn. So let's play this so that we defend this pawn. Our knight is on the edge of the board, so that's kind of unpleasant, but in the process, white made so many weaknesses that we can maybe try to punish this. We can already start breaking the white position with the move f6. We can also throw down this pawn, like play this, so that we can maybe get rid of this weakness and also activate the rook on the a file. If they play this, then I'm not too worried. I feel like that's maybe a weakness in the future. Maybe we have moves like this enabled, although that's not possible right now. We can play this, and if they take us, we're going to take with the rook, and that looks like a really nice position, because then this pawn is an isolated pawn. We have a nice clump of pawns. This is an isolated pawn, but the rook defends that, and we don't have problems with it. It also prevents white from expanding on the queen side. So I really like playing this move. And if they really want to let me take and then maybe try to get a knight there, maybe I have ideas of this, if this pawn doesn't hang. I really like h6 because we're trying to break up the space they have. I'm trying to argue that they're overextending rather than taking useful space. So in chess, there's like this fine balance between trying to take space. Like you need to have some pawns in the center so that you can control your opponent's pieces. Like for example, this knight cannot just go here and try to go after my bishop because of this pawn. This pawn is doing a really good job of preventing this knight. Yes, they can go here, and that's kind of annoying. Maybe I have to give up the bishop. In fact, I really like giving up the bishop and then just grabbing this pawn. This knight defends this, although that might not be a good idea. Yeah, so if I take this pawn, they still have bishop takes. And after my knight takes, my rook would be undefended. I feel like the position is transforming more to our favor. I really like this. The drawback, of course, is our pawn is on a dark square, and this bishop can try to attack it, and we don't have a dark squared bishop that can potentially attack this. Which one's better? Here or here? Honestly speaking, I prefer this. I don't like this because there are quite a lot of pieces that I have to move to get my rook active. Now I feel like I can play this without hanging rook takes knight. Because if they try to sack the rook for the 2 pieces, they won't get the 2 pieces. They're only getting the knight because I can capture with the rook. They're trying to go for a queen trade. Understandable. Is there anything that I can do? I feel like I'm kind of missing a lot of stuff in this game. How about takes, and the knight is out of place, and we can play rook to b8. I don't like that. So maybe I just have to say that my move was bad, and I have to just get back into the position. You know, the queen there is not a great piece because it prevents the knight from going there, and I feel like they want to move their knight there. A queen trade would have been bad for us because then our weakness would be a lot more of a weakness. And also this knight has very active play. They can go here, try to get the bishop, and also attack the pawn. It's going to be a pretty unpleasant position to play with the black pieces. I don't exactly know where I went wrong, but I don't love this position. Threatening something like this. I'm assuming it's time to come back. This move maybe sets up ideas of c4. I'm also gonna combine it with the move rook here. That move doesn't really have a threat. I don't think that does anything. I mean, do they really want to sack the rook and then the queen so that they can get a check and then take this? That doesn't even work. So perhaps we can play this move. And I'm not too worried about bishop here. I'm just gonna move my rook up by 1 square. In this position, I want to somehow activate my knight. Like this knight here on the edge of the board is not a great piece. It went there because this bishop was super annoying. I felt like I got outplayed in this position. I mean, in the whole game. That, I think, is a little too much. You know, that doesn't really have a concrete threat, I believe. What even is his idea? Is he trying to like fork my rook in this pawn? Like that doesn't even work. Like he cannot even go there. Well, that was unexpected, and I didn't really want the game to end like this. My opponent used to be rated 1200 and he lost 40 points, so clearly he hasn't played in a long time. Let's have a look at the game review. I just noticed that my opponent played at an accuracy of 83.5 and I played at an accuracy of 80, so clearly I played worse than my opponent. My opponent played really well. The opening was a weird choice, but it paid off because I didn't really know how to play against this. These were all book moves. I was just trying to play natural moves. The reason why I played this is because I wanted to play e5. So let's say they just play this. I can play e5. And bishop takes is not possible because I can play this. And the knight cannot capture because the queen would hang. If we go back to the position, they played this move, which makes sure that this knight cannot move and I cannot play this. Now if I play this, they can play bishop takes. And my knight cannot take, because that would result in me losing my king, which is illegal. So after they played that, I played e6. e6 is a very solid move. It defends the center and also opens up the opportunity to play knight f6. I could have played knight f6 anyways, and if they take me, I would have probably taken with the g pawn or the e pawn, and I would have accepted the fact that I have a slightly worse pawn structure, but I have the 2 bishops. They go for the exchange, which was kind of surprising for me, but it was kind of justified. Many people say that you shouldn't trade a bishop for a knight, but in this case, there's a pretty good reason. White did a really good job of controlling my pawn breaks. So these pawns were kind of a weakness and a liability rather than like a strong thing. The pawns are closer to the center, which is nice, but they didn't really do anything. And if I tried to push and hope for something like this, that wouldn't be good for me because they don't have to take, they could just push. And these pawns are much more of a weakness, so I wouldn't push. That would be like an overextension. We played d3, very good understanding of the opening. I did not know that. So far so good. We developed the bishop. Played h3, I wasn't worried about it. I just wanted to wrap my bishop around and put some pressure maybe. But white's position is so solid that my bishop on g6 wouldn't be doing much. Apparently this was an inaccurate move and I was probably supposed to take the knight. So the best move is bishop takes f3, which I missed because I was like, they would just take like this and I got nothing for the bishop. Now, materials equal, they have the same pieces, like dark squared bishop, knight, knight. The only imbalance is I have double t-pawns and a semi-open b-file. I can play rook b8 and potentially put pressure. That's all I have working for me, but also these could be bad things in the endgame. So I didn't really want to take. I wanted to keep my bishop pair for as long as possible. The line I was talking about during the game is this, and if they went for this, this is just a sample line. If they went for this, I was pretty happy because this h3 pawn was pretty weak. And I felt like in the endgame, I can maybe try to outplay my opponent, maybe get a few pawns, but that didn't work. They didn't go for this line, which was kind of like a surprise for me. They played g5. g5 was a bad move, and I'm not sure if I played the best response. Their idea was to take this pawn if it was left to die, and I played this move, which was defending the pawn. The engine is saying that this move was kind of greedy. You should just throw away the pawn and be more active. That makes sense because, as you have seen in the game, this knight never really got to move. Like, it went to h5 and it never really got to move. Beginner principles say that the knight on the rim is dim. I believe that's what the saying is, and that's very true. My knight never really got to move after it moved there. So I was being a bit materialistic. I was just trying to not lose any material. They go for h4. In my opinion, that was a logical move. It defends the pawn. I mean, it didn't need to be defended, but they defended it anyways. Now, I should have played queen c7. Queen c7 has the idea of preventing knight to e5, and knight to e5 is a major idea in white's position. Because if they can get knight to e5, they can either take the bishop eventually or they just have a really annoying knight. They're going to put a lot of pressure everywhere and they can bring the other knight to f3. They have a very pleasant position. I didn't really see that, but yeah, I kept missing it and I was trying to go for this bad plan apparently. I was hoping for takes, which would have been a bad move according to the eval. Like, now it's equal. I was planning rook takes and my idea was to bring this knight back, and the h4 pawn was a big weakness. And actually there's only one line for the white position that's slightly better for them. It's plus 0.3 and the other lines are better for the black position. So it's a very hard position to play with white pieces. We don't get that in the game. We get bishop takes, which is the best move according to the engine. Now I take. I'm just trying to simplify. I showed this in the game. The idea is if I take like this, I'm completely losing because of rook takes h8. And actually I'm losing 2 rooks. So after I go up, I'm just losing both of my rooks. And I have nothing. Like, they can just hide and everything is okay. They went bishop to b2. Apparently they should have attacked my queen, but I don't really understand the idea of that. I went here. Later in the game I realized that it was a bad move because it didn't really do anything. What I had to do is bring the knight back when I had the chance. So in the game we get queen to f3 after I play that move, and I can no longer play knight to f6, and my knight never really got the chance to move. This is the reason why bishops are generally better than knights. Knights are very clumsy and they take a while to go across the board, whereas bishops can be on literally the other side of the board and they're controlling squares on my position, so my knight cannot just move easily. This was an inaccurate move and I agree with it, because I just allowed queen f3. I totally just missed that move. Now, I should have traded, but I felt like the endgame was really bad for me. And I was right, but I felt like keeping the queens on the board was maybe a bit more like better for me, even though the engine disagrees. Like, practically speaking, I would say keeping the queens on the board is better. Now, I try to bring my queen back and then keep everything nice and stable. Apparently castles was the best move. I didn't really consider it, but it kind of makes sense. The reason why I didn't castle is because they just have this and they're picking up this pawn. I didn't really see a proper way to defend that. I play rook to b8. It's kind of like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to play a random move and let my opponent self-destruct. This is what happens when you play against someone lower rated and you don't know what to do. If you're in like a worse position, you just like do nothing. Just play like cocoon defense, and eventually your opponent's gonna like self-destruct, especially in a game where, you know, your opponent doesn't have too much time. In a classical game, of course, this wouldn't work because they have plenty of time to realize that they're okay. If I'm playing against someone my level with the black pieces, I would definitely lose with the black pieces because they would be able to use their pieces and prevent my knight from ever going back. But white was 1200 and he decided to force things, which is what most beginners do. Like, they need to be more patient and, you know, spend a bit more time, take things a bit more easy, and make sure that they do things more clinically. They go for this, which didn't work at all. As you can see, white is still better, but I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna take the material. Maybe it would have worked if they had this and my opponent just resigned. I wasn't really expecting it, and now that the engine ran for a bit, it realizes that the position is plus 1.2 and white is still doing great. If you ask me to play this game with the white pieces, I would probably lose. I don't know what to do. Let's look at the top engine line. Queen to g2, putting pressure over here. King d7 is the best move. Strange. I'm just allowing takes. What if I defend? Look at this. I was talking about knight to f3 in the game, and now it's the best move. And they're just going for all the weaknesses. Like earlier in the game, I talked about how the knight going to e5 was very dangerous. Now, Stockfish kind of realizes that the rook sacrifice wasn't totally dumb, because I would have played this, and it was a kind of practical choice. They're eventually going to get a knight here, and that knight is worth like 4 or 5 points, and this rook is worth 3 points in my opinion. So piece value is not constant in the whole game, and the same thing goes to pawns. Like a pawn on g7 is not as powerful as the pawn on g2, because the pawn on g2 is like 1 square away from queening, so obviously it has more value, and also there's piece value. So this queen is controlling more squares and it's putting pressure, whereas this queen is just a glorified pawn. It's just defending all the weaknesses in the position, and this knight is doing a really good job putting pressure everywhere. This bishop is like a long range piece, just sniping. I can never play rook to g7 or rook to h8 because that would lose in exchange. It's a really nice position to play with the white pieces. But unfortunately, white just resigned when he was in a better position because he felt like he just sacrificed an exchange for no reason. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.